Always love having Dr. Cornell West on this program. What an amazing hour with him of truth telling. And I appreciate his taking the time to come on for the first hour of our program. 2 great hours in front of us. In this hour, as promised, 2 amazing conversations. We continue our year-long series of conversations about climate justice and racial equity with the CEO of the Urban Kind Institute, Jamil Bey, who joins us live in studio on the backside of this hour. But we start this hour with Kevin Sharp, former federal judge and attorney for longtime political prisoner Leonard Peltier. He'll take us inside his client's preparation for his first parole hearing in 15 years and his prospects for a compassionate release. I am honored to have Kevin Sharp on this program. Kevin, how are you today, sir?
I am doing all right. Thanks for having me on. I didn't know I was going to have to follow Dr. West. Seems unfair.
No, you are esteemed in your own right, and you are doing some amazing work and witness in your own right, and I'm pleased to have you on this program. Let me just jump right in. For those who have heard the name Leonard Peltier but don't remember or recall the backstory, it's worth just giving you a few minutes here at the outset to explain who he is, what has happened, and why I'm having this conversation. So tell us about Leonard Peltier.
Well, thanks for asking. It is helpful to do that because I'll admit that before I got involved, I did not know who Leonard Peltier is or was, how we got to this place. Mm-hmm. Leonard was a member of the, and I guess still is, a member of the American Indian movement. Right, a movement that came together and came out of the oppression and broken treaties by the United States government and their relationship with Native Americans. In 1973, some of you might remember the Wounded Knee incident where members of the American Indian movement took over Wounded Knee to bring attention to their mistreatment by the United States government. A couple of years later, all of those troubles continued, but a couple of years later, the federal government has really stepped up their involvement in and around a reservation in South Dakota called Pine Ridge. And that becomes an important place because of the mineral rights, because they run a SWAT school out on that property, and they need the land, right? We push the Native Americans, the indigenous peoples, the land that they didn't initially believe was worth anything, and then turns out maybe it is. We'd like to have it back. And so it creates trouble in that area. The FBI, as remnant of COINTELPRO, is running counterintelligence operations against AIM, as they were doing with the Black Panthers and with unions and different organizations that they considered to be subversive. And members of AIM were called into that area to help protect the traditional peoples, or the people that wanted to live in a traditional way, because the FBI was not doing it, and they were, in fact, funding a private militia. So that's what leads Leonard Peltier to the Pine Ridge Reservation in 1975 to protect the people. Ultimately, there was a firefight on June 26, 1975, that results in the death of a Native American young man who was 21 years old, Joe Stuntz, and 2 FBI agents named Kohler and Williams. 3 people are prosecuted for that crime. And the death of those agents. Leonard is tried separately from his co-defendants. The co-defendants are acquitted based on self-defense, and that just leaves the prosecution of Leonard Peltier. There's a document that I've seen through a FOIA request, an internal FBI document that says, they recognize they lost the first trial, and they're going to put the full resources of the United States behind convicting Leonard Peltier. They ultimately get that conviction with tainted testimony. They threatened and intimidate witnesses. They hid exculpatory evidence. The trial is a mess. Leonard was in Canada at the time. They brought him back with a falsified document. A woman named Myrtle Pourbaix, who said she was Leonard's girlfriend. She was there that day, saw Leonard kill these agents, when in fact Myrtle Pourbaix never met Leonard Peltier. She was forced to sign that by FBI agent. The the trial was just a constitutional mess. On day 2 of trial, one of the jurors admitted to being prejudiced against Indians. I say it that way because that's the way she said it. Mm-hmm. And nevertheless, she was left on that jury and was there to rule against Leonard Peltier. And so, for the next 49 years, people have been fighting to correct that wrong. The FBI hangs on to it, still continues with their narrative that Leonard Peltier shot these agents when, in fact, their evidence fell apart decades ago. The prosecution of that case, one last thing, the prosecution of that case called their own evidence against Leonard sketchy and has since admitted they don't know who killed the agents. But here we are almost 50 years later, and he's still in federal prison.
That is the story of Leonard Peltier, told brilliantly and briefly, succinctly by Kevin Sharp, former federal judge and attorney for this longtime political prisoner, Leonard Peltier. When we come forward, now that you understand the backstory, we'll talk about where we are today with Kevin Sharp on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Grid Alternatives is a nonprofit organization in Los Angeles. We offer paid job training. In 13 weeks, you can be a solar installer. Solar is a high-growth industry. 80% of our graduates get hired in the industry. We serve communities who have been left out of the renewable energy sector. Call today, 626-600-1852. Again, 626-600-1852. Don't be left out any longer.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Single Moms Planet is a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting under-resourced single mom business owners and working mothers nationwide. Single Moms Planet offers comprehensive programs of financial literacy, business development, mentorship, and entrepreneurial training. They provide education, accountability, and hope. Single Moms Planet was founded by model, TV personality, and producer Nefertiri Plessy. Nefertiri felt firsthand the challenges that face single moms as she was raised by a working single mother. She learned that the most disadvantaged group in the United States are single mom families. According to the U.S. Census, 30% live under the poverty line. So she decided to do something about it, along with co-founder Cole Patterson. Their goal is to end the poverty cycle in single mother households through education, opportunity, and networking, providing family and child enrichment programs for under-resourced single-parent families. Single Moms Planet serves over 10,000 single moms and their children each year. Studies show that business development and financial literacy provide a positive environment for children and families, exposing them to new possibilities and opportunities. To attend one of their fun events, make a donation, or get more information, or if you need help as a single mom, please visit singlemomsplanet.org. That's singlemomsplanet.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what part politics play in our lives.
Questions about black voters, their disengagement, lack of information, and support or lack thereof for Democratic candidates have once again taken center stage as Democrats, Republicans, and independent candidates compete for this critical voting bloc. Will black voters abandon Democrats in this election, move historic numbers of votes toward the Republican nominee, or will they continue a decades-long trend of overperforming for Democratic candidates up and down the ballot? The stakes have never been higher for Black America. Tune in to KBLA's new show, The Black Pack, hosted by veteran political strategist Adrian Shropshire, every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. for a breakdown of the issues, rhetoric, polling, and more this election year. It's The Black Pack with Adrian Shropshire, Fridays from 4 to 6 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we, drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and Sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is...
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Those are the elements, earth, wind, and fire. I am Tavis Smiley. He is Kevin Sharp, former federal judge and attorney for longtime political prisoner Leonard Peltier, who I'm pleased to have on this program. Kevin Sharp, thank you for just reminding us of the backstory of Leonard Peltier and how for almost 50 years, while others were found not guilty, others were released from these false accusations, the federal government put all of its weight behind getting Leonard Peltier. They did, and now a half century later, here you are, yet trying, as others have, to get him out. Tell me about where we are 50 years later, sir, in this case.
Well, it always blows my mind that it's 50 years later and we're still talking about this. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's ancient history to a lot of people, but it is still the work of the federal government to make these folks go away, to not talk about this, to not recognize their own misconduct that put him there. And in spite of the fact that one of the people who's come out to support Leonard's release, whether it's through compassionate release that the Bureau of Prisons can do, parole through the Parole Commission, or clemency by the President of the United States, one of the people supporting our efforts is the U.S. Attorney on the case at the time, who recognized their own misconduct and recognizes that they did not have the evidence necessary to convict him of this crime. Yet here we are almost 50 years later. He's about to turn 80. In September, Leonard's going to turn 80 years old. He uses a walker. He's got multiple serious health conditions, some that are life-threatening, and they still keep him in a maximum security prison. The only person he is a danger to is himself falling because of his health and his own infirmities. So, here we are. The FBI is a powerful force, and they've been able to keep him locked up.
Here's what I find fascinating about this conversation. I have a really, really bright audience. I'm sure they've picked up on this already, but let me just put a finer point on it. You are, sir, as I've said twice now, a former federal judge. A former federal judge is Kevin Sharp. You heard this former federal judge, Kevin Sharp, just say a moment ago that the prosecutor who was on the case back then has now acknowledged that they didn't have the evidence to convict Leonard Peltier. And yet for 50 years, Leonard Peltier has sat behind bars with a case that is shoddy, for lack of a better word. That is a damning indictment of our criminal justice system, our judicial process, that a former federal judge now represents Leonard Peltier, and that the prosecutor on the case then acknowledged that they made mistakes, they were wrong, didn't have the evidence to get him, even though they got him. How do I read that, Kevin Sharp, as an indictment of our system?
You know, it really is, and it pains me to talk about it in that way because I didn't know who Leonard Peltier was. I was 12 years old when this happened. I didn't know the story. So I came into this as a former federal judge who had taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States when I joined the military. I took that oath again when I became an attorney in the state of Tennessee. I took that oath again when I took the federal bench. I was appointed by President Obama. I take that oath seriously. But the individuals who prosecuted this case and investigated this case took that same oath. And that's what really, really disturbed me because it meant nothing to them to throw that away to reach their goal. And that then makes me question this system. You know, there's a friend of mine who works in this area, and I said to her, you know, the system is broken. And she goes, no, it's working exactly as it was designed to do, to get those people that they want to put behind bars, the people that they don't want to keep talking, the ones who they don't want to expose the flaws in this system. They can make them go away. And that's what they've been trying to do with Leonard Peltier and the American Indian movement since it was founded.
Yeah. How much of this, let me just ask you a point blank question. The government rarely likes to admit that it made mistakes. That's just the nature of government. It's why we're still talking about reparations all these years later. The government doesn't want to acknowledge that. We could talk about Japanese internment. I got a long list here if I had the time. And you are a student of history yourself, so you know this stuff as well, if not better than I do. This government does not like to admit that it makes mistakes. All of us we're all fallible. We make mistakes. We're humans. We're not human and divine. We're just human. But for whatever reason, the government just doesn't like to admit that it made a mistake. I was watching the other night for the more times than I can count. I'm a fan of this movie Shawshank Redemption, and if I'm flipping channels and I see it, I'm just compelled to stop because the storyline is so fascinating to me. And you saw in this movie the character played by Morgan Freeman and his disgust and disdain with the whole process of finally of parole and what he had to do and to get parole. I mean, if you've seen the movie Shawshank Redemption, you know what I'm talking about. Andy Dufresne, played by Tim Robbins, said, "I wasn't guilty and I'm out of here." And he dug his way out through that tunnel. But Morgan Freeman, his character stays in prison for all these years and ultimately, as you know, after many, many times being turned down, finally gets parole later in his life. I raise that because I'm curious as to what the process is. That's a movie. That's Hollywood. But what is the real process like for Leonard Peltier in terms of parole? What's the process like for his prospects of getting a compassionate release? This is real life. What's the process like, particularly at this moment?
Well, I tell you, it's interesting that you talk about it in that way. Judge Heaney, who wrote the opinion back in the 80s, upholding Leonard's conviction, came out just a few years after that, calling for compassionate release, saying he was concerned about this case. He said the government needs to take responsibility for its role, and they refuse to do that. The cards are really stacked. The parole system runs through the parole commission, the Federal Parole Commission. It only applies to what we call old law prisoners because parole was abolished back in the 80s. So you have to have been convicted and sentenced before parole was abolished. So this system only applies to 150 individuals who are still parole eligible in the federal system. The Parole Commission is supposed to be made up, and I say supposed to be made up because it is not, there are 5 seats on the commission appointed by the president, vetted by the White House, vetted by the Senate Judiciary Committee, confirmed by the United States Senate. except that it's been decades since they have had a full complement of commissioners. So the way the system works, there are only two, is that a hearing examiner becomes a de facto commissioner because you only have two commissioners. So how do you get a majority vote to get someone out? It means the examiner becomes a commissioner. And that entire system is set up to deny parole. Once you can even get there, they control the number of witnesses you get. They control how long they can speak. They control the topics they can talk about. And so we had a hearing on June 10th in a small conference room inside Coleman Maximum Security Federal Prison. And it's really difficult to get the story out when you are limited in the amount of evidence that you can put on, that who can speak, what they can talk about. So, I'm hopeful that after 50 years, we can finally get Leonard out of there to go back to Turtle Mountain Reservation, the Chippewa Reservation up in North Dakota, and let him live out what few years he has left. But I'm also realistic that this is not a system, as Morgan Freeman said, this is not a system that really cares about any of this. It's about grinding people up and making them go away.
I'm curious. I've got about 3 minutes left here, 3.5. I'm curious as to why you took this case. You've said a few times that before you took it, you didn't know who Leonard Peltier was. It is a historic narrative in this country, underscoring again the ways in which our government has maltreated, and that is a charitable and generous word, the way they've maltreated the American Indians, the natives, depending on what period of history you're talking about. The language is different, as you well know. You noted that earlier. But my exit question, though, is, now that we've talked about it, I could have started our conversation here, but why does a former federal judge take a case like this?
It's because I care about the Constitution. I was raised in that system. When I took that oath, I took it seriously, and I expected everyone else to. So when I spent my entire professional life supporting and defending the Constitution, and I was sent this file to read, I did it with a blank slate. I didn't have any preconceived notions about the government's treatment of American Indians, Native Americans, because it was, it's taught in school for about 15 minutes, and you really kind of move on. Let's talk about the good things in this country, not the bad. Yeah. So that's why I took the case. But over the 4.5 years that I've had it, I've really come to learn the rest of it, and that's what you hit on.
Yeah.
The mistreatment of the indigenous peoples is horrifying and disturbing.
Do you think, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but do you think that this time around for Leonard Peltier, it will matter that he's represented by a former federal judge? Will it matter that the prosecutor in the case is now called for his compassionate release? Will it matter that the presiding judge in the case long ago called for his compassionate release? Will any of that matter, that persons who were formerly stewards of this system are now asking the system to rethink a bad decision it made?
I hope so. I'm sitting over here with just hope. It's part of another thing you mentioned earlier. If we can't talk about the negative things, if we can't correct those, then I'm not sure what that says about this country and this system. I am hopeful, but the FBI is a powerful force, and they generate a lot of fear. Can we overcome that with our collective voices from inside the system? This was our system that we are calling out. I don't know if that's enough. I'm hopeful, but I'm realistic, as is Leonard.
Yeah. Kevin Sharp, former federal judge, attorney for longtime political prisoner Leonard Peltier. Very quickly, in 30 seconds, when can we expect, it will be national news, it always is, when can we expect a decision in the Leonard Peltier case?
I would think it could come out as early as today.
Today.
But certainly it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible that the time has passed. They've had it long enough.
Right.
With their rules, they have 21 days, but they can push those. So, this week or next, I would think at the latest.
Yeah. Kevin Sharp, I thank you for your service to this country as a federal judge, as a member of the military. And I thank you for your working witness in this regard, the case specifically of one Leonard Peltier, and I thank you for the time to share with the audience about what you are doing. All the best to you, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A man has pleaded guilty to the murder of rapper Lil Don William, who's black, in March. WDRB reports William, known as Young Block, was followed from Louisville and was shot in the parking lot of Caesars Southern Indiana Hotel. President Biden is defending his record of helping black Americans. The CNN debate moderators asked Biden about some glum statistics on progress with black Americans. Biden touted gains in lower health care costs for black Americans. Biden also pointed to $50 billion he designated for historically black colleges. Trump said black people are being hurt by most high inflation that he claims Biden ignited. New court documents reveal Michael Jackson, who's black, was more than $500 million in debt when he died. A petition filed in Los Angeles Superior Court by the executors of his estate showed the extent of the King of Pop's debt. The filing also said Jackson's estate was left financially liable for $40 million to tour promoter AEG. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Double trouble on the 110 southbound. Now, first in downtown LA on the South 110, right at 8th Street. An accident's in the left-hand lane, and that's causing the backup from Stadium Way. Up ahead in South LA, 110 southbound at Florence Avenue, an accident's over on the right-hand shoulder. You have additional delays here. You have a backup from the 10. Speaking of the 10, also in downtown LA on the 10 eastbound before Hoover Street, it's an accident on the right-hand shoulder, causing a backup from Bundy Drive.
Is this the This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It's the summer shopping season, better known as NBA free agency. Paul George wanted a 4-year deal worth $221 million to stay with the Clippers. The Clippers said no, and George said goodbye. George's 5-year run with the Clippers is over. The 9-time All-Star was in Philadelphia Sunday night to meet with the Sixers. George is expected to sign with the Sixers in the next day or so. James Harden is going to stay with the Clippers. He agreed to a 2-year deal worth $70 million. LeBron James is a free agent after declining his $51.4 million option with the Lakers. No worries, LeBron is not leaving. His son is on the roster now. LeBron qualifies for a 3-year deal totaling $160 million. Look for that contract to be signed sometime soon. The Detroit Tigers snapped the Angels' 6-game winning streak Sunday. The Dodgers gave up 10 runs Sunday at San Francisco. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Giants. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Time with family, laughs with friends, and cash back.
Discover's got you covered on the last one. That's because Discover doubles all the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cash Back Match. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what part politics play in our lives.
Questions about black voters, their disengagement, lack of information, and support or lack thereof for Democratic candidates have once again taken center stage as Democrats, Republicans, and independent candidates compete for this critical voting bloc. Will black voters abandon Democrats in this election, move historic numbers of votes toward the Republican nominee, or will they continue a decades-long trend of overperforming for Democratic candidates up and down the ballot? The stakes have never been higher for black America. Tune in to KBLA's new show, The Black Pack, hosted by veteran political strategist Adrian Shropshire, every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. for a breakdown of the issues, rhetoric, polling, and more this election year. It's The Black Pack with Adrian Shropshire, Fridays from 4 to 6 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now. Right now.
Maybe not, Kamal. Maybe not. The song says these are the good times. I love Chic, but maybe not. Maybe Kamal wasn't listening. We had Cornel West on the first hour, who called it a grim moment in American history. I'm just messing with Kamal. I love the track. I said I love Chic, but these aren't such good times. This is a grim moment in American history. Politically, economically, socially, one could even argue culturally. The day after the BET Awards is still a grim moment in America. I digress on that point. Part of that grimness relates to what we want to talk about now. I am pleased to have the CEO of the Urban Kind Institute, Jamil Bey, in studio with us as we continue our year-long series of conversations about climate justice and racial equity. It's a grim moment. This topic did come up. There was at least one question about it, as Jamil Bey will recall, in the debate last Thursday. And President Biden has been given good credit, I think deservingly so. In this regard, he's done quite well, I think, advancing notions of climate and environmental justice. I give the president high marks in this particular lane over his first term. And yet, there's no doubt in my mind that this is the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience, and that's why we're having these year-long conversations. You saw us on C-SPAN last week for 3 hours with a panel of nothing but black people. The country had never seen that, talking just about these issues and their impact on our community. So we continue our series all year long talking about climate justice, and I'm pleased to have, again, in studio, Jamil Bey. Brother Jamil Bey, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, brother.
It's an honor to have you on this program. Tell me briefly here about the work that you do at Urban Kind, and obviously I know that you are also an official in the city of Pittsburgh, and we shout out the great playwright from Pittsburgh, August Wilson.
August
Wilson. I never mentioned Pittsburgh without mentioning August Wilson. So tell me briefly about the work that you're doing, then I'll jump right in.
Well, I work at the Urban Kind Institute. I'm a geographer by training. A former high school teacher, and what we started to do at Urban Kind was to be that space where we hold between academia, community voices, philanthropy, and government. And so bringing the community voices into the conversation rather than letting communities be studied all the time by local universities. What are the research questions that they have? How do we make sure that those institutions are accountable in their engagement? And how do we then sort of work with local elected officials to get the policy to get to the issues that the people want? And so we've held that space since we started in 2016 and have just built a network that, grew out of Pittsburgh. We're doing some work in other cities nearby, Cleveland, Louisville, Baltimore, but also now, just national joining networks to have these conversations. And climate and environment, continue to rise to the top.
Are those conversations, to your point now, do you actually see them as rising to the top?
what we see from the community's perspective, a lot of these conversations are not identified as the primary cause. And so a lot of our work, when I tell my staff, look, we focus on justice issues. And it's very difficult to isolate justice when we've been so unjust in this country, particularly toward black and brown folks. And so when we start thinking about environmental justice, climate justice, it's hard to tease those things out when you've been after decades and generations of economic injustice, educational injustice, political injustice, housing injustice. And so the lived experience is pain. The lived experience is trauma. And so when folks are now, oh, here's stormwater's coming again, my basement's damp, cars are being, washed away, those sorts of things, and now people have those new bills. That's more so just as included as, well, and this too. But it would be less of an issue, and this is why our folks are much more vulnerable, is because of these other generational injustices that folks have endured. And so now climate on top of that.
Yeah. I wonder whether or not you think the message is resonating. I always want to draw attention to the maladies and to the crises, the catastrophes that we are disproportionately impacted by. That's why we're in this year-long climate justice campaign. You want to draw attention to that, but you also want to acknowledge the fight back. And that's why I like talking to people like you at UrbanCon, because the fight back is real, particularly at the local level, at the community level. So you guys are in Pittsburgh, as you mentioned, you're in Cleveland, Baltimore, other places. So your work is expanding regionally, and at some point, I suspect even nationally. So the work is expanding. But I'm wondering whether or not the message to our people is resonating, that these issues are silent killers and that we have to be engaged and involved in the conversation.
We see it resonating in two ways. One, the younger people have much more exposure to these issues and conversations, and they sort of get it and see how it's connected. But a lot of the folks who've been dealing with some of these other injustices over decades and generations, our approach is a little different. So let me use this as an example. We have this initiative that we call Trust Trees. And the idea is that, we know that a healthy urban forest, an urban canopy can alleviate and mitigate a whole lot of the climate challenges. It's not going to fix it, but we can slow down some of that heat island effect. We can absorb some of that stormwater. We can reduce some of the toxins in the air. But coming into a community that has been disrespected and disinvested for decades and saying, hey, let's plant more trees, that never resonates. But when we listen to folks, we say, well, what's important to you? What are your priorities? And it doesn't matter what city we go into. We know what we're going to hear. And once we start listening, people want places for their kids to play. They want jobs. They want opportunities to go outside and feel safe. They want lower energy bills. And when we have those kind of conversations, and how about we think about trees as a part of that solution? And while we come together for community tree planting, and this is what these kind of things really resonate. Why don't we do this? Some of these trees are going to be here for 150, 200 years. These are generational investments in the infrastructure in our community. Let's get a picture of you, your grandmother, and your uncle planting this tree with something that's going to be here.
I like it.
Let's take that picture, and we print it out too. We don't just give you the digital version.
I like it.
Save this for your kids. And let your kids say, look, your great-grandmother's hands were in this tree is our tree. And so it builds up a community base. But while we're doing it, we're having that conversation about these other things. And so we're building community capacity. We're getting folks out from those neighborhoods to talk about trees and to come together. While we're here, what are some other things that we can do? How can we then raise up some of those issues so that we can go to city council to talk about it as a collective? How do we then bring that community cohesion that we're building together so that we can push other issues and continue to put trees in the ground?
You know what's amazing about these conversations, and that's why we're doing it all year long, because I am determined to do my part in the space that I occupy to help push this issue higher up on the American agenda, and certainly higher up on the African American agenda, because again, we are the victims of these silent killers. But in so many ways, when you talk about climate, people, I think, shy away from it. One, because it ain't sexy, as you well know, doing this work every day.
Right.
But also, I think people look at it as an intractable problem. And I'm not so sure it is intractable. I'm not so sure all the damage done is irreparable. I want to talk about those two big words when we come back. The intractability of it that some see, and the irreparability of it that some see.
Right.
I want to talk about that because the juxtaposition for me is intractable with doing something simple like planting trees.
Right.
You see where I'm going here?
Yes, sir.
Well, we're going to go there when we come forward with Jamil Bey on Tavis Smiley.
From Lamert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's to many more years of loving and serving our community. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
I know it's gonna happen without you.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Help prevent gun violence tragedies. Gun violence restraining orders can help to prevent individuals at risk of harming themselves or others by removing their guns for 21 days up to 5 years. Learn more about how to petition for a GVRO and the role of GVROs in safeguarding communities by visiting lacountygvro.org or by calling 1-833-540-0473. GVROs can save lives.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Jamil Bey, who is with Urban Kind Institute, the CEO, based out of Pittsburgh. He's also director of the Pittsburgh Department of Planning. The mayor reached out to him, given his fine work at Urban Kind all these years, and asked him to become an official there in the city of Pittsburgh, the home of August Wilson, as we said earlier. We'll talk about that part in just a second. I'm watching my time is getting away from me. I was talking a moment ago about this juxtaposition in my mind of the intractability of climate when we talk about it, that it just seems so big. It seems so monstrous that we can't solve this problem. The globe, the planet is heating up, and all the water issues and the hurricanes and the tornadoes and the air pollution and all the stuff, it just seems so big, so intractable. And yet here you are telling us about things we can do like planting trees.
Right.
It's an interesting dichotomy for me.
So when we think about like how we got here,
yeah,
you know, we've adopted and accept that our economic system does best when it's at its most exploitative and it has its fewest restrictions. Mm-hmm. And we are unwilling to call that out at scale. The amount of extraction, the way that we extract, the way that we allow polluters, not just in our communities, but globally, to do what they do with as few regulations. You know, this is how we got here. Mm-hmm. And so the big change, you know, we need to call that out from the energy producers, but not just that, you know, to the car manufacturers, battery manufacturers, all of it. Mm-hmm. That needs to be called out. But at the same time, when we think about, who's vulnerable, and that's us. And we're vulnerable because we've been excluded and a part of that exploitation for so long. So what do the jobs look like as we're thinking about this new economy? A lot of folks use this language of a just transition. And, some of the unions have adopted that, but a lot of the unions have not been really hospitable to our folks. Mm-hmm. And so, if we transition, let's make sure that we land jobs for those folks who are working in unions. What about those folks who have been excluded from the economy at scale for generations?
Yep. To that latter point, your work with the city as director of the Pittsburgh Department of Planning allows you, I think, to weave those two things together.
Right.
Tell me more about that part.
And so when the mayor asked me in late March to jump into this role, I was close friends with the former director. And, we talked a lot about what that means and what was necessary. And the charge was basically, one, let's change the narrative around these issues so that we can get policy to make a difference. And so, beyond the talk, what does that mean? What do green zones mean? How do they work? I see Los Angeles has adopted some green zones where these things are and these things are not allowed in certain neighborhoods anymore. But also, what are the community benefits agreements? And are we not making community benefits agreements and accepting things that continue to do harm? And so one, how do we make sure that what we're allowing is no longer harmful and is also reparative, but also how do we make sure that our economics are reparative and restorative to communities that have been harmed? And so that includes, we talked about trees, but it's also Pittsburgh, we got a lot of, hills and valleys and a lot of creeks and streams. How are we making sure that what's going into those, what's running off into those streams that is not impacting kids that want to play in water? And when those streams overflow their banks and run into streets and run into people's homes, that it's not bringing contaminants. And so the work that we're doing now is codifying these changes that we want. And, we're learning from a lot of our partners in Baltimore and Buffalo, Cleveland, Louisville, because we've been talking to those folks the whole time before I was in this role about some best practices and how we take care of each other, with a water equity task force that the U.S. Water Alliance put together and pulled a bunch of those cities into these conversations.
When we come forward in our remaining moments with Jamil Bey, I want to come back to the point he made a moment ago. This is, again, my perennial challenge, trying to advance this narrative, whether it's C-SPAN or this radio station that I sit in L.A. or our nationally syndicated radio program on which you are appearing right now. For me, it's always about the narrative. Mm-hmm. And I love the frame that you put me in, the frame of thinking about how we change the narrative, to use your phrase. I want to talk about that part in our remaining moments, how we change the narrative to a narrative that will, in fact, resonate with our audience, resonate with our people. That's where we'll close when we come forward with Jamil Bey on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive, unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found BenefitsCheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley wrapping his conversation with Jamil Bey in the last few minutes that we have here. You talked earlier about changing the narrative. Let me yield the rest of the time we have to you to talk about changing the narrative. It seems to me that whatever frame that we are in, our work and our witness has to be a work and a witness that allows everyday people, as Sly Stone might say, to situate their humanity in the narrative. How do we do that when it comes to climate?
Well, it's difficult to lead with climate. Mm-hmm. And so the language we use is around thriving families.
Okay, I like that.
And every family, no matter where you meet them, where they're from, they want to see their children do well. They want to be comfortable. They want to feel safe. They want to have food that's culturally appropriate. They don't want to worry about their bills. They want to feel like, they see a future. And so we try to situate these issues in that narrative of thriving families, thriving homes, and that allows, grandmothers to come into the conversation. That allows young people to come into the conversation. What does this mean? This is why we're planting trees. This is why this stormwater is important. Now, if you have a daughter that is prone to asthma attacks, and, she's missing school because her asthma is flaring up, and you have to take time off to be there with her or take her to the doctor, you're missing out on work. You need to pay attention to that. She's missing out on school. You need to deal with that. But meanwhile, it's because your basement's more damp more frequently because the water is coming more often. We get these more intense storms. There's mold and other triggers for asthma that we can manage with better policies, better, what? We need more street trees. We need to invest in the stormwater infrastructure. We need to seal these homes up. That should be our call to get you to action, is that you pay attention to your daughter, but know that we're doing this so that your daughter has this place to thrive. And so when we're advocating for better stormwater policies, when we're advocating for more trees, when we're advocating for other climate mitigation, it's to protect you and your child so that you can continue to do what you do. We're not expecting everybody to be a tree hugger and everybody to come out and, join all of these initiatives. But the advocacy, understanding why we're doing it so that we can get the policy change is important.
I like that frame, thriving families, and that's what we're talking about here, right? As we talk about the urgency of now, climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience for our community. It's all about thriving families. So I love the frame that Jamil Bey leaves us in. As he leaves, I remind you once again, he is the director these days of the Pittsburgh Department of Planning and has been and remains the CEO of the Urban Kind Institute. I celebrate Jamil Bey for his work and witness down through the years, and an honor, sir, to actually have you in L.A. in this studio. Thank you for your time. Good to see you.
Thank you, brother.
Good to have you here. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A man has pleaded guilty to the murder of rapper Lil Don William, who's black, in March. WDRB reports William, known as Young Block, was followed from Louisville and was shot in the parking lot of Caesars Southern Indiana Hotel. President Biden is defending his record of helping black Americans. The CNN debate moderators asked Biden about some glum statistics on progress with black Americans. Biden touted gains in lower health care costs for black Americans. Biden also pointed to $50 billion he designated for historically black colleges. Trump said black people are being hurt by most high inflation that he claims Biden ignited. New court documents reveal Michael Jackson, who's black, was more than $500 million in debt when he died. A petition filed in Los Angeles Superior Court by the executors of his estate showed the extent of the King of Pop's debt. The filing also said Jackson's estate was left financially liable for $40 million to tour promoter AEG. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Double trouble on the 110 southbound. Now, first in downtown LA on the South 110 right at 8th Street. An accident's in the left-hand lane, and that's causing the backup from Stadium Way. Up ahead in South LA, 110 southbound at Florence Avenue, an accident's over on the right-hand shoulder. You have additional delays here. You have a backup from the 10. Speaking of the 10, also in downtown LA on the 10 eastbound before Hoover Street, it's an accident on the right-hand shoulder, causing a backup from Bundy Drive.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It's the summer shopping season, better known as NBA free agency. Paul George wanted a 4-year deal worth $221 million to stay with the Clippers. The Clippers said no, and George said goodbye. George's 5-year run with the Clippers is over. The 9-time All-Star was in Philadelphia Sunday night to meet with the Sixers. George is expected to sign with the Sixers in the next day or so. James Harden is going to stay with the Clippers. He agreed